Hi everyone, I'm thrilled to welcome Dr. Pinakin Parekh, an experienced cardiologist who has spent years helping people better understand and take care of their hearts. But rather than me listing out all of his accomplishments, I would love for him to share a little bit about himself and what inspired him to pursue cardiology. Dr. Pinakin, welcome to Chai and Chat. Thank you for being here. Can you tell us a bit about yourself and your journey into this field?
Thank you, Neha, for having me on board in your maiden venture of going into the podcast world. It's nice to share things that I know. My name is Pinakin. I'm a cardiologist based in Singapore. I'm Indian. I'm third generation Indian here, and I decided to pursue medicine. And now I'm into cardiology, so I do general cardiology work, and my subspecialty. I go one step further. My subspecialty is interventional cardiology. So that's basically opening up blockages in the heart that can lead to heart attacks or even chest pains in patients. You asked me a question about what led me into this field. You know, it's a bit like a trip down memory lane because people used to ask me this 15 years ago when I started my career. So now everybody has gotten into the motion of things and no one really asks me this anymore. When I was a medical student, we go through different rotations. Every medical student will be exposed to the whole body and then they decide what they like. So I've always felt and I still feel that the heart is probably or it is the most important body part. It's the one that gives life. Without the heart pumping, nothing really has life to it. And the heart is a majestic organ. It goes on for years and years. And one small problem of a blockage, it can cause a heart attack. A small problem in the valve can cause a valve leak and compromise someone's well-being. And the other thing, yeah, one more thing I will just chip in here is when you grow up and you have people around you who develop heart disease, you always feel that, hey, maybe in future I can be the resource person to help my family and friends should they have a problem. And it starts off with that kind of wish, you can be the person to help people amongst your close self, and then it just becomes a career after that.
Oh, that's so nice to
Yeah.
hear. Like how you said, doctor, and when I conceived my son, the very first thing I saw, like they have this 7 week scan and they show how the baby's growing. Like finally we could see something developing. And the very first thing we saw or heard was this sound, and it was
Yes.
just heart. It was just heart in a tiny seedling. And that was the moment where the very first time I saw my son, like, and heard his heartbeat. So, like,
Yeah,
I
and,
can
and, and,
imagine.
and it signals life, right? Once you see the heartbeat before any other organ has developed, you will just feel, hey, there's life with every single heartbeat.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for sharing that, Dr. Pinakin. It's
Thank
inspiring
you.
to hear how much you care about helping people and people around you. Before we start, I have to ask you, what's your go-to drink? Chai, coffee, or something else?
It's a nice question. Actually, my go-to drink is really ice cold water. So ice cold water, yeah, really. So I mean, I don't really consume so much of chai and coffee. I know it's a saying out there that doctors love to drink a lot of coffee to keep themselves awake, keep themselves energetic in the day. But I'm not a coffee person. Water, ice cold water, really quenches my thirst and makes me energized and makes me refreshed. No
Wow.
sugar. No sugar. We'll come to that.
All right, that's good to hear. And let's dive in. So,
Sure.
I've always felt like heart health is one of those things where we don't pay much attention to until it's too late. When I heard you talk about how easy it can be to recognize early signs and take better care of ourselves, I knew I had to talk to you on my podcast to share your insights with our viewers. So, how easy it can be to like detect that, okay, like my heart health is not how it should be.
I think when it comes to heart health, the heart, by the time you develop symptoms, and this is a common phenomenon I face with patients, they every time feel they will have to wait for something to develop and then they only take notice of that. So it's not like a orthopedic problem where the joint is broken or joint is crooked, you know there's a problem. So once it comes to heart problems, most of the time everything starts off silent. So you know, if you have a blockage that's developing inside you, or if you have a valve problem inside the heart, then most of the time, until a breaking point comes, it is silent. So before you have symptoms, I always tell people, you know, you need to actively screen for risk factors, right? So there's certain things that increase your risk of heart disease. They are silent. You need to do something about it to check one step ahead of the curve. And what are the checks? Well, we can discuss that. You know, there's so many different things we can do. Some are sophisticated, some are really simple as a blood test.
Oh, nice. So just looking at the blood test levels. So is it as simple as looking at HDL versus LDL? And could you please give more insight on what is HDL, what is LDL?
Correct. So I think I think let's go one step further. We have cardiovascular risk factors, right? So when somebody develops a problem, risk factors, and these risk factors can be two types: modifiable and non-modifiable. So modifiable are things that you can control, and there are a few non-modifiable ones that you just cannot run away from. So I mean, it's very hard to change your parents. So if you got a family history of cardiovascular disease, you have to be a bit more cautious about yourself. If you are of a certain ethnicity, South Asian like us, you know, Indians, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, Sri Lankans, studies have shown that they have a higher risk of cardiovascular disease. You cannot run away from that. But what you can do is look into the modifiable ones, and the most common ones are high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, smoking. And in the female patients, once they reach a certain age, the defining period, menopause, that also
Wow,
becomes a cardiovascular risk factor. So how do you check for cholesterol? You said blood test. Yeah, so the simple way, you know, yeah, do you drive a car?
I do, yes.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people in the US drive cars because the country is so vast, right? Here in Singapore, you know, we have a lot of transportation system that helps us. But if you drive a car and if you own a car and you maintain your car, you know that to check, let's say, the tire pressure of your car,
Hmm.
you bring it to a station and you measure the tire pressure and you make sure that's in a good range, not too
Right,
high, not too low. So same thing for blood pressure. You need to measure your blood pressure by using a machine. And most of us don't own a machine, right? We
right,
rely for the doctor to check our blood pressure when we go to the doctor for any other reason. Let's say you got a flu or a cough or a running nose. You go there, and by the way, you check your blood pressure. But
right.
what if you don't fall sick? What if you never fall sick? What if you have no chance to go to the doctor? So I tell
Mm,
patients it's always not wrong to invest in a blood pressure machine to just measure periodically at home, just to have an awareness so you don't get caught off guard. That's the
right.
car's pressure. But the oil of the car, the oil, the engine, I know I'm not talking about electric vehicles now,
Mm,
no electric vehicles, but the oil of the car, you actually go to the engine, you take out a sample to look at the oil under the dipstick to see, same thing, draw blood test. So
mm.
these are the important ones that we generally advocate for patients.
That sounds good, doctor. And the next question that comes to my mind is, so when we do a blood draw, we usually look at cholesterol levels. So
Yes.
if let's say somebody's is in the range but on the higher side, what can they do to keep it within the range and keep it lower?
So again, once you look at the cholesterol profile, you know, there are few readings, right? It gives you HDL, as you tried to mention just now. It says LDL also.
Hmm.
And in current day modern cardiology, we just mainly concentrate, or I rather mainly concentrate on one main thing called the LDL. That's the bad cholesterol. LDL has been known to cause atherosclerotic disease, blockages. So I'm just going to try to show you something here. So, you know, if you look at your blood supply, the blood flow, you want the inside to be very clean, devoid of any obstruction. But if you have high LDL circulating values, they get deposited inside here and make the orifice narrow. it becomes narrower. So once you have a narrowed passage, then that can lead to chest pains. And if this becomes more narrow, or if there's a blood clot that develops on top of it, you can have total stoppage of blood flow, and that's a heart attack. I'm just going to finish it up over here. So this is like a heart attack. I'm not sure whether you can see the cholesterol builds up, and you can see a red color thing
Yes.
inside that suggests there's a blood clot, and this is a heart attack. So you've got a cholesterol plaque, which was there, stable, but suddenly ruptures, and you have two problems going on: blood clot on top of a cholesterol plaque. So I just went on, but these are things that we always need to be mindful about. LDL, mainly LDL. HDL is the good cholesterol.
Okay.
Some people
So,
say that HDL can offset, right?
right. So LDL are the bad guys and HDL are the heroes. And normally, when we talk about HDL, so let's say, doctor, I feel like, oh, my LDL, and with the blood draw, like my LDLs are high. So, can I improve my HDL to bring down the LDL? Is that work like that? Or,
Yes, you can try to improve, but rather than trying to make the good more than the bad, rather than trying to have, uh, good soldiers and leave the bad soldiers around there in a
Mhm.
war, for example, the bad soldiers are going to still bite back at you. So no
Got it.
matter how much of the good you have, the bad is always lurking around. I mean, that's a very
Got it.
simplistic way, but the bad is always lurking around. So you really need to get rid of the bad. One rotten apple spoils the basket. So if you have something there, it can still be a problem. So you need to work at reducing the bad.
Okay. And what are the ways, doctor, like we can work on reducing that?
So, not many people know this, but the 80% of the cholesterol, the bad cholesterol that you see inside the blood test, it's manufactured somewhere. It's made somewhere. It's made in the liver.
Okay.
Organ that we have, the liver, it's made there, and the raw material is sugar. So sugar
Hmm.
goes down the process to generate LDL in the liver. And that's why the main thing I tell is to reduce your carbohydrate intake, carbs,
Okay.
refined sugars, cakes, pastries, ice cream, and also big rice portions. That's
Okay.
all carbs. That's all carbs. So you can try to reduce that by 50%. You're already on the path to success. You're gonna bring down your LDL values.
Got it. So, and I think let's go back to what you said. South Asian people are more prone to heart attack or heart diseases. So,
Yes,
is eating more carbs is the reason that we are more susceptible to it? Like,
great question. So that's part of the reason. Parts of more carbs, the rice. Sometimes we are very rice heavy in our diet. That increases.
mhm.
And also, I didn't complete the earlier picture where LDL is manufactured in liver. 20% of it, so 80% was from the liver, 20% of it comes from absorption of food with
Mhm.
high cholesterol content. So sometimes it's things like seafood, prawns and crabs and squid, high cholesterol content, direct absorption to cause high LDL. And the other part of the structure is, once you have high LDL already, be it 80% from liver, 20% from food, once you have it circulating in your bloodstream, there's certain things that take away LDL, capture it, remove it from the system, and these are called the receptors. It's just like, I don't know whether you watch cricket, Neha. There's MS Dhoni catching the ball behind the wicket. So we have these receptors that catch the cholesterol balls to internalize them. The more the better, right? The more you have, the more the cholesterol is removed. The less you have retains behind. So it is known that South Asians have these receptors down regulated very easily. They go to sleep, they're away from
Interesting.
the system. So that's part of it. That's part of it, on top of just the diet and the 80% ratio which I spoke about. Receptors. So again, there are certain things that make receptors down and up, like fried fatty food makes
Hmm.
it down regulated. Vegetables make it up regulated. Omega-3 fatty acids, avocado, chia seeds make it upregulated. So, diet, we can go on and on. No, but these are the
Right.
three basic things I get them to look at. Carbs, direct absorption from high cholesterol food, and the theory of receptors and what makes it up, what makes it down.
Got it. So basically, if somebody has to look into lower the LDL levels and increase their MS Dhonis in the body, what
Yeah,
do they have to do is basically eat good diet and make sure whatever they are eating is mindful. Like, for example, how much ghee they are taking. So, and with ghee comes another question. Does it count as in LDL or in HDL? Because it's again fat.
yeah, that's right. So to be honest, I've stopped putting ghee in my rotalis for a long time. If my wife gives me one with ghee, it's not going into my system. So, so I've wasted a few rotalis here and there, chapatis, but I think ghee counts towards the LDL
Okay.
theory because it probably down regulates the receptors. So ghee, bad oils, fried food, it down regulates the receptors and you have more circulating LDL. So there's a difference between fats and cholesterol. Cholesterol is the one we're measuring, the
All
one that's
right.
friction in the liver, the one that's absorbed from food. But fats, ghee, butter, fried oily food, for those who eat red meat, animal fats, beef, pork, all that is fats that down regulate some of these receptors.
So would it be okay to say that plant-based diet is much better for heart health than being on animal protein diet?
Proteins are okay. Proteins are
Okay,
okay, but I think, but if you eat the skin of this animal fats, like for example, you eat chicken, right? Chicken is very good in protein. But if you have fried chicken, so fats come into the way because of the oil,
got it.
and the skin itself has a lot of fats. So
Okay,
then you kind of lose the advantage that you're getting. So, so even I'm a non-vegetarian, so I eat chicken, but I hardly have the skin.
okay.
Yeah. Every now and then, of course, you indulge in your fried chicken and things like that, but it should not be a staple.
Once in a while is fine, but if you're watching your weight, not weight, let me correct that. If you're watching your cholesterol and if you're watching that, you need to lower down the LDL.
Mm.
So those are the things that we need to keep our eyes on. Sounds great.
Well, I should not have corrected yourself because weight is also important. Checking your
Okay.
weight helps with the cholesterol management in the sense
Okay.
that, the receptors, you kind of get it upregulated if you exercise and keep your weight down. So exercise
Got
is
it.
also very important in any of the cardiovascular risk factors, be it cholesterol, blood pressure.
Okay.
Exercise is a very big word.
Right.
Everyone is so busy, no one has time to exercise. Then
Yes.
how? What's the
Right.
solution?
So true,
Walk,
doctor.
walk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
so
walk is
just
also good for heart.
walk is good enough. No, listen, you're not doing anything most of the time, right? Sitting at home watching Netflix. So if you can just get out, walk 30 minutes a day, don't need to rush yourself. Even a leisurely walk, get moving, count your steps. It's going to be helpful.
Awesome.
And
Because
the
sure,
US is
please
a
go ahead.
best place to walk. I love the scenery that's always there.
Yes, and I think, doctor, to that point, like if I talk about myself, like I work and like there's hardly any time for me to do exercise. Like either I have to get up in the morning and go to the gym, or towards the end of the day where I am done with all the work at home, and now finally I got time to hit the gym. And by that time we are so tired that it goes down the hill that we don't want to go. We want to stay
Yeah,
back. So I think what you're saying is if we include walk during the lunchtime, that would help us bring down all the bad cholesterol and LDL levels.
that's right. Yeah, so that's helpful. And even talking about lunchtime, I just wanted to catch on the point is depends whether you eat three big meals a day or you kind of skip a meal, right? Because if you
Okay.
skip a meal, it's going to really keep your weight in check, right? So if you are able to cut down on one meal or really reduce it by a lot in terms of quantity, it can help keep your weight in check, and that's also going to be useful.
Got it.
So, I mean, as a doctor, sometimes I get so busy in the afternoon on most days by habit because of being busy in the afternoon, either a meeting or something. Lunch is reduced automatically. And
Sure.
that indirectly helps me in a forced manner, right? I don't have time for it. Yeah, provided you don't have gastric pangs and all that side
Okay.
effects, it kind of works well for me. Each individual is different.
Sounds good. And coming back to the same question, where I was talking about like how the stress levels are high now with the work that we are doing. So some of us are sitting at home and basically working from home. So that also includes a lot of stress on a day-to-day level. Does that impact our heart health, doctor?
Stress leads to high blood pressure. Stress. So you can increase
Okay.
your blood pressure. Um, you know, we are asked to remain still when we take our blood pressure. We are asked to remain calm when we take our blood pressure. That's the definition of how to measure blood pressure. Early in the morning when you just wake up or nighttime before you go to sleep, your blood pressure can be fantastic. But the moment
Mm-hmm.
the day starts and you start running around and your blood pressure goes high throughout the whole day, that's not good because you are mostly stressed throughout the day and your two
Right.
readings in the morning and evening are just a short period of time. So
Mm-hmm.
stress is a factor for cardiovascular disease by the way of high blood pressure. I
Okay.
mean, there are some patients who come to me, they are very stressed, they can't do anything about it. Then they end up with blood pressure medications because I can't solve the root cause unless you change jobs, change the family, depending whatever is giving you the stress. Yeah, but that's not practical advice.
Right, right. So, what are like apart from this, what are the most common misconceptions that you can tell about the heart diseases out there?
Well, that's an easy one. I get it all the
Okay.
time. It can never happen to me. You see the
Mm,
media. It's happened to this celebrity, it's happened to that
right.
friend of yours or that relative. And I feel fine. I'm okay. I'm not so obese. My family risk factors are not so great, but it can never happen to me. I don't need to check. Time Aiga, I will check it. When the time comes, I
Right.
will check it. So that's the misconception because things can be silent. You'll never be aware of it until it's a bit too late. So be one step ahead of the curve. Get some routine checks earlier.
Got it. And that's what we have been hearing so far, like people who are getting stressed out, like we have been hearing people exercising and then getting heart attacks. So what should we do to, like apart from stress, diet, like what else is there so that we can keep like young generation healthy, like in today's date?
Uh, you know, again, another misconception is everyone equates cardiac arrest. I think you used
Hmm.
that term just now. Everyone equates cardiac arrest to a heart attack. There's some
Right.
subtle difference. There's a difference. You know,
Okay.
there's a difference, and I think the easy way to make you understand this difference is let me just show you a model. This is the heart, and this is a model, of course, it's not a real patient's heart, it's a model. But I always tell patients to think of the heart as your house. There are five parts. Number one is the walls of your house, the four walls. So the heart muscle is the wall, right? So the heart muscle pumps, that's the outer wall. You can see all these red color things that
Yes.
flow on top of the heart. Think of this as your pipes of the house, the water pipes, the drainage of the house. You want the flow to be smooth. You don't want some gunk to block up the flow.
Hmm.
So if it happens in the heart, cholesterol gunk that blocks up the flow, you get a heart attack because there's no flow. So wall, pipes. You enter the house. Let me try to get this. You enter the house. The house has rooms. 3-room house, 4-room house, 5-room house. So the heart has 4 rooms, 2 chambers on the left, 2 chambers on the right. We call this the chambers.
Okay.
Blood circulates within the heart for it to be ejected out of the heart to the whole body to supply the brain, the kidney, the lungs, everything else.
Hmm.
And then in between the rooms, you've got the door. To get
Hmm.
into one room, you need to open the door and you need to close the door and you go inside. But these doors are special doors. These doors are one-way doors. So
Okay.
no blood can go backwards to the room it came from. We
Mm.
call this the valves. So when we listen to the heart, when doctors listen with a stethoscope, we are listening to the opening and closing of these doors. Duk, duk. You made the sound just now when your baby was being
Right.
born. Duk, 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 duk. So that's opening and closing. And the
Okay.
last part of the last part of the house, the electrical cables that you have behind the wall supplying electricity to the house. So the heart is also something similar. So this is a different model, but embedded inside the walls, you see these yellow cables.
Yes.
Those are the electrical fibers that supply electricity to the house or to the heart. So your 60 beats per minute, the 70
Mm-hmm.
beats, your heartbeat, it's all by electrical stimuli. So the heart is
Okay.
electrically active. So the heart is very, very complex for a small pump. It's got so many parts. And so when we talk about cardiac arrest, it
Mm-hmm.
basically is a term to say that the electricals of the heart have gotten so damaged to the point the
Okay.
heart cannot function anymore.
Wow.
So it's either too fast, chaotic heartbeat, or too fast, too irregular, so the heart cannot pump properly anymore. It's like your light
Mm-hmm.
flickering, or the light
Okay.
or the light just doesn't turn on. Stop. But having a flow problem, a heart attack will cause pain, 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 pain. But if the
Okay.
damage is so great, it can damage the electricals. And then you have a cardiac arrest. So cardiac
Right.
arrest is a big term. Heart attack is one of the causes of cardiac arrest. In a
Wow.
young person, let's say a 19-year-old, 10-year-old who suddenly just collapses, they might not have a heart attack because they don't have the traditional risk factors. They don't have
Mm.
cholesterol at this young age. They don't have high blood pressure, but they can have abnormal electricals in the heart. So they can have extra wiring, extra wires, born with extra wires
Wow.
that cause a short circuit, irregularity.
All of a sudden.
Yes. So the electricals can just go off suddenly. The impulse
Wow.
just gets generated within abnormal circuit. Or the valves are faulty or the walls are faulty. Hole in the heart. You heard about holes in
Right.
the heart,
Yes.
abnormal valve leaks. So, when the child is growing, or rather when the child is developing in the womb, sometimes the development of the heart cannot be normal. So that can
Okay.
cause other problems.
Interesting. And doctor, can we check these symptoms before, like, or do we always check this when the baby is born?
I've not done pediatrics or gynecology and obstetrics in a long time, but I'm sure in the prenatal scans, right,
Okay.
the major malformations are picked up. The major ones,
Okay.
right? The ones which are very dangerous for life, like the chambers are, because we have chambers, two on the left, two on the right, total four
Right.
chambers. Sometimes the chambers can be switched around. It's a bit confusing to explain, but some of these things can be picked up in your
Okay.
prenatal scans. But for the smaller things, sometimes they are not visible. The electricals,
Mm-hmm.
the extra wiring, you might not pick those up,
Okay.
unless you've had an ECG done. Where we put some stickers on the body to get the EKG.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
analyzing the signals of the heart on a graph paper.
Okay.
So you potentially could in some scenarios.
Okay. And do we have any early signs, like if we can prevent cardiac arrest?
Well, so for cardiac arrest, if you have palpitations, you feel your heart
Okay.
suddenly racing away.
Mm-hmm.
It's not because of an excitement, or it's not because of some exam stress, but you're just very calm, sitting down. Suddenly you feel
Yes.
racing away. That's not normal. Your heart should not suddenly race away without some extra stimuli. If you're fearful, if you're panic, you're having a fever, all that's a stimuli. You're running. That's okay. But
Okay.
suddenly it just goes offbeat.
Mm-hmm.
That's not normal. You have to get it checked. That's
Got
for
it.
electricals. But for other things like breathlessness, chest pains, it could be an underlying reflection of the doors or the pipes or the walls. So all
Okay.
those need to be taken into consideration.
Okay. So I understand cardiac arrest is a big term, but are are there any symptoms for heart attack that can be detected earlier?
Yeah, so before you get a heart attack, so heart attack is basically generally when the pipe is totally choked, totally occluded,
Okay.
no flow down to the muscle at all.
Mm-hmm.
That one you'll start having pain and breathlessness and sweatiness with jaw clenching and arm
Okay.
pain on the left side. You feel as if you're about to pass away. That's how patients describe sometimes.
Oh,
I
wow.
felt like I was about to die because the pain and the sweating is very profuse.
Okay.
But that's the end game. That's the end stage. But if you have some limitation of blood supply, but not
Mm-hmm.
100% blocked, you can have chest discomfort when you walk, right? At rest,
Okay.
you're okay. But when you increase the demand of the heart, when it
Okay.
has a higher demand, the limited supply, which was okay during rest, might
Mm-hmm.
manifest as a demand and supply mismatch when
Got
you
it.
exercise. So those are
Okay.
symptoms. When you exert, you feel chest pain, you feel breathless. You need to
Okay.
stop to make the demand and the supply match again to feel better.
Got it.
And then you go again, reproduction of symptoms. Red flag in my mind. Not
Okay.
good. Yeah.
Wow, that's such a huge, huge information that you've just given. I mean, because these are the symptoms if somebody's getting panic attack, it's very similar symptoms like how you suggested arm pain and then chest pain. So even in panic attack, we are like palpitations are happening and things are happening. So how to differ between if I'm having a
Yeah.
panic attack or heart attack?
Let me add something else to the mix. Panic attack is a
Okay,
mimicker. We call it a mimicker of a heart attack or some cardiovascular problem. But other
okay.
mimickers are reflux, acid reflux. We've got the food
Mm,
pipe. So when someone has some symptoms of concerning the heart, you must bear in mind you've got a food pipe there, you've got the lungs there, you've got a
right.
muscular wall there. So all this can also cause similar sounding symptoms, right?
Okay.
Reflux, some people with heartburn,
Mm-hmm.
also known as reflux, can
Right.
feel like, it's my heart, but actually it's the gas, the acid rising up. So how do
Okay.
you differentiate? That's why we go through medical school for 15 years, or no, but that's why I go through specialty training for 15 years, medical school for 6 years. So it's really an index of suspicion,
Mm-hmm.
listening to the story of the patient, asking all the relevant questions,
Okay.
whether pain is on exertion. Were you walking when it came? Or did it come when you were in a room with strangers?
Okay.
Or did it come when you were in a crowded cinema? Or when you're
Okay.
about to take your exam results? Or was it when you're walking up a slope and it came? It's different,
Mm.
right? One sways in this direction, one in that direction. If it's gastric, do you have frequent burping?
Mm.
Or when you lie down, do you feel the discomfort more because you're negating gravity from the situation? So without gravity, things go up more easily. So
Okay.
we have a lot of questions we ask. I try to ask a lot of questions before I even examine the patient.
Okay.
Because if you speak to the older doctors from 30, 40 years ago, they will tell you that diagnosis making is done by history taking. You can
Got it.
mostly diagnose a patient's probability of something just by taking a good story, and
Okay.
then the examination and the investigation adds up to the complete picture.
Got it. Wow. So if somebody has a panic attack, or even if the symptoms, they better should see the doctor right away. It could be anything. Do not negate that. Okay.
Correct. So I mean, when someone fresh comes to me, someone with no past problems and comes
Mm-hmm.
to me with some symptoms, I will not straight away just say panic attack as your diagnosis. I'll make it a point to make sure it's not a heart problem, make sure something not serious
Got
before
it.
we work down the list of differentials to say, okay, now everything has been ruled out. It could have been a panic attack. And then,
Okay.
if it happens over and over again and with a reasonable effort, something has been ruled out, then we can say, okay, don't worry, this is one of your bouts of a panic attack. If it's really a panic attack,
Got it.
just by because some test has been done with confidence.
Sure. No, this is definitely a very, very useful information, doctor. Thank you so
All right.
much to talk to us about it and just giving us such important information. Like for us, our listeners or the viewers right now, like they can assess where they're at and how can they help themselves so that they can get the help they need from the doctors or the nurses.
But I hope
Before I
I've not
let
I hope I've not scared or given too much information, because let me tell you what generally happens from my experience. So, when a patient comes to me, the wife, if it's a male patient, the wife will come and I'll tell them all this thing about diet and all these things about symptoms. The patient will listen, but the wife listens even more, and and they kind of totally change his lifestyle to such a great deal that he becomes miserable. So I think there's moderation. You don't need to have total cut out of sugars. You can just reduce by 50%. And if you have some symptoms, you can monitor them. But if they're not being shaken away, if it keeps coming back, then you should see a doctor. You don't really necessarily need to run to a doctor at the first instance, of course, unless it's so
Okay,
unbearable at rest. But if it comes and goes, you can monitor, because panic attacks can cause it, or so many other factors which are variable can cause a self-limiting problem.
sure. No, I think this is really helpful. Thank you so much, doctor. Before I let you go, we have this segment where people ask me question in the DMs, and
Okay.
I have selected top 3 questions that I can go through. Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah, that's nice. That's useful, actually. That's from the ground, so that's useful.
Awesome. So the very first one is, what are some subtle warning signs of heart issues that people in their 30s or 40s often outlook or overlook?
I kind of answered that, but I think just to refresh everyone's memory is probably you could walk, let's say, 6 kilometers, 5 kilometers with no issues, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
run. And over the last 3 months or 2 months, you can't even cover half the distance. Something is limiting you. You have breathlessness, you have some discomfort, but you could do it before. Maybe not before 10 years ago, age changes things, but you could do it 3 months ago, 4 months ago. Then that's a problem. If there's a new change in a short period of time,
Okay,
that needs to be taken note of. So
got it.
I think new symptoms never there before. Good to check.
Okay, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Second, as a mom approaching 40s, what are the top things that I should be doing every day to keep my heart healthy? She says, I have a family history of heart attacks.
Yeah. So, in the beginning, risk factors, modifiable and non-modifiable. So if you have a family history of heart problems, heart attacks specifically in this case, it really depends on the family history being at what age. Because if your parents had heart problems in their east or their 70s, then attributing this to a genetic tendency that's running around at home is less probable, because if it's really a genetic thing, usually it's a premature young onset family disease, so parents in their 50s, 60s. But if it's old age related, sometimes, because aging also is a risk factor, then you should be less worried, because it's a different disease process.
Okay.
So, if young onset family disease, of course, you would like to check your own personal risk factors, whether you've got high cholesterol, which could be running in the family.
Mm-hmm.
One more thing, since it's a lady who asked this question, one more thing I wanted to emphasize is, I know 40 is a bit young,
Mm-hmm.
but at about 47 onwards to 50, 51, that's when menopause happens.
Okay.
And menopause is also a risk factor for cardiovascular disease. It
Oh,
increases the risk of blockages. So, everyone talks about the hot flashes and the
right.
irritability and the weight gain, but cardiovascular risk factor is also increased.
Okay.
So and I always tell patients that before you hit menopause, you need to ride into menopause with good risk factor control, because
Hmm.
menopause is going to make it worse.
Wow.
So you better
Okay.
ride into it well. If you already have poor cholesterol over the years before it, it's going to get even more worse.
Okay.
So you probably need to check that. And if females start having menopausal symptoms earlier,
Mm-hmm.
because traditionally it's 47-50, right? That's your natural with any other peer of yours. But if you
Mm-hmm.
have premature menopause or early menopause, this increases your risk by much earlier, right?
Wow.
Because you have 10 years of menopause, let's say if you had premature, so that increases your risk. Why menopause is
Mm-hmm.
a risk factor? Because the hormones, the female hormones, the estrogen, they are very protective for heart health. Once you
Okay.
lose that, you start increasing your risk like a male after menopause.
Wow. I think
Yeah.
that's a different topic altogether, and we'll
Yeah,
touch on that
we'll touch on
in
that.
one of the
Yeah.
many series for sure. But thank you so much, Doctor. I think, and the last one is, it scares me out when I hear young people as early as in 20s getting heart attacks. What has changed? Why is this sudden shift?
Yes, I've seen heart attack patients in the early 30s, late 20s also. What has changed is our diet has changed a lot. Our
Hmm.
diet, I remember growing up, I used to eat home most of the time.
Hmm.
Weekends, maybe my parents might bring me out for some nice decadent meal. But now, with the busyness of life, everyone seems to be eating out. And once you eat out, can't really control how the preparation is, how much sugar that goes into it, what kind of oil is being used. So all these are factors that increase your personal cardiovascular risk profile, especially LDL,
Hmm.
bad cholesterol, and even salt, right? Salt intake. So salty
Okay.
food, too much salt, that increases your blood pressure. So all that
Okay.
is just fueling things. So I think
Sure.
for me personally, that's the biggest thing that has changed. And
Okay.
some of the intangibles like stress and work life,
Hmm.
even like some people get stressed because they are on their phones all the time, have to reply to a WhatsApp message here, and work hours have been blurred, right?
Yes. Yes.
Like even I'm guilty of it. Of my daughter's teacher, I've got her number, so I text the teachers after hours sometimes, right? So it's a bit blur, and
Catching
the
up.
teacher will get
Yes.
stressed.
Yes. Wow, that's sad at the same time where we are heading towards. But I think with the information that we collected today from you will help some of the people to just start taking care of their health and think of it as like a very important thing and not wait for until they see some symptoms or develop some symptoms. I think this has bbeen really useful.
The key message, my last parting thing, if I could re-emphasize what I said earlier, never think that it cannot happen to you. That's the biggest issue, and you see this happening in the papers all the time. This young celebrity had a problem, and
Yes,
you never thought it could have happened to them, right? They're so
right.
fit, they're healthy, they have a personal trainer, they have all the luxuries at hand to optimize
Yes,
their health. It can still happen.
I think that's an eye opener, doctor. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Neha. Take
Thank
care.
you so
All the best with
much.
your series.
Thank you. And we'll see you soon again, hopefully with the
Love to be
next
back.
next
We
part.
can talk about other things. You can ask your audience what they would prefer to speak about.
Sure.
There's so many things we can talk about. Diabetes and smoking, so many things.
Yes. It's a vast topic. And I
It is.
think it's been a pleasure to have you here and
Thank you.
cannot thank you enough. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you, Neha.
doctor.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Thank
Bye.
you.